Okay, I want to start us off today with a little game, a pattern recognition test. I'm just going to list a few names and I want you to tell me what connects them. Don't overthink it.
All right, I'm ready. Let's hear them.
Okay, first group, Zeus, Ares, Hermes, Hades.
Easy. That's the Mount Olympus starting lineup. Ancient Greek gods.
Exactly. Got it in one. Now for the curveball. From a totally different world, Moses. And let's add one more to that, Jesus.
Ah, okay. I think I see the thread you're pulling on now.
It's pretty obvious once you line them up, right? You have these huge figures from Greek mythology, and then two of the absolute pillars of Abrahamic religion. I mean, these worlds, they shouldn't overlap, geographically, theologically.
Not at all. One is polytheistic, Mount Olympus, thunderbolts. The other is strictly monotheistic, Jerusalem, the desert. And yet they all end on the exact same sound.
That S sound. Zeus. Moses. Jesus. Once you hear it, you really can't unhear it. And I think for a lot of us, when you notice a pattern like that, especially with these, high stakes figures,
Your brain immediately wants to find a deeper meaning.
yes. You think, is this some kind of secret code? Does the S mean something divine, some shared lineage?
It's a natural human thing to do. We're wired to find patterns. So we see this suffix on gods and prophets, and we assume it must be an honorific, like sir or lord, a sign of power.
Right, but we're doing a deep dive today based on a linguistic analysis. It's called Why So Many Gods End with S, and it turns out that answer is, well, it's not mystical at all. It's shockingly practical.
It is. It has nothing to do with divine power and everything to do with the nuts and bolts of grammar. It's about how ancient sentences were actually built.
Okay, so to unravel this, we have to start at the source. With that first group of names I mentioned, Zeus, Ares, Hermes, the Greek originals.
Exactly. We're in the world of ancient Greek.
Yeah.
And to get why their names end that way, we have to talk about something that, well, it usually makes people's eyes glaze over. We have to talk about grammar, specifically declension.
Oh boy. I think I remember that from a high school language class. It's usually the point where I tuned out.
You and pretty much everyone else. But bear with me, because it's the whole key. See, in English, we don't really use it. We rely on word order. If I say the dog bit the man, you know who did the biting.
Right, dog comes first. And if you say the man bit the dog, the meaning is completely different just because I swapped them.
Precisely. The words dog and man don't actually change, but in ancient Greek, word order is much more flexible. You can move words around for emphasis.
So how on earth do you know who's biting who?
You look at the ending of the word, the tail. The name itself changes its spelling depending on its job in the sentence.
Okay, so this is the case system I've heard about.
This is the case system, and the one we care about for this mystery is the nominative case. That's the form a noun takes when it's the subject of the sentence, the one doing the action.
So if Zeus is the one throwing the lightning bolt, his name is in the nominative case.
Correct. And here's the golden rule of ancient Greek grammar. Most masculine nouns, and that includes proper names, have to end in a sigma S when they're in the nominative case.
It's mandatory. It's not optional.
It is a structural requirement. Think of it like a handle on a suitcase. To make Zeus the subject, you have to attach that S handle. If you don't, the sentence kind of falls apart grammatically. The listener won't know he's the one doing the action.
That's a great way to think about it. So the S isn't a badge of honor. It's just syntax. It's a piece of machinery.
Purely functional. In fact, if Zeus was the object of the sentence, like if I said, I see Zeus, his name would change. It would become Zoom, no S.
Wait, really? So he's only Zeus when he's the one doing something?
Essentially, yes, when
Yeah.
he's the subject. So if your name was, say, Tom, in English, you're always just Tom. Tom is eating. I see Tom. In ancient Greek, if you were the one eating, you would probably be Tom's.
Tom's is eating lunch. Huh.
And if someone gave a gift to you, you might be Tommen. The name itself mutates. So that S we hear in Zeus and Ares and Hades, it's just the marker of a masculine subject.
That really does take the magic out of it, doesn't it? It's like finding out a king's crown is really just a hard hat because he works on a construction site.
I suppose that's one way to look at it, but the real proof that this isn't some special god thing is to look at the rest of the pantheon.
Right, because if S meant divine, then all the gods should have it. Every single one.
Correct. But now let's think about the female deities mentioned in the text. Hera, Athena, Aphrodite, Demeter.
No S. Not a single one. They all end in vowels.
Because that rule we just talked about, the nominative sigma, It's generally for masculine nouns. Feminine nouns have their own set of rules, and they don't need that S handle.
So Hera is the queen of the gods, arguably just as powerful as Zeus, but grammatically, she doesn't get the S because she's female.
Exactly, and that confirms it. The S is purely mechanical. It's gendered grammar, not a theological title.
Okay, that completely solves the Greek side of things. Zeus, Ares, Hades, they're Greek names, they're following Greek rules. Makes perfect sense. But this is where it gets really interesting.
Yes, the bridge to the Bible.
Because Moses, he isn't Greek at all. He is the quintessential Hebrew figure. So why is he wearing a Greek grammatical tag?
This is where history comes crashing in. We have to talk about the collision of cultures in the ancient Mediterranean.
Right. Alexander the Great comes through, and suddenly Greek is the lingua franca. It's the English of its day. Everyone speaks it.
It was. And this created a very specific problem for Jewish communities living outside of Judea. Places like Alexandria in Egypt, you had generations of Jewish people who were born and raised in a Greek-speaking world. Many of them couldn't read the scriptures in the original Hebrew anymore.
So they needed a translation.
Desperately. And this led to a monumental project, the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. And this is where our Moses problem really begins.
So what was his name originally? In Hebrew?
In Hebrew, his name is Moshe.
Moshe. Ends with that soft vowel sound.
Yeah, right. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a translator, maybe around 200 BC. You need to write, Moshe went up the mountain in Greek. The problem is Moshe ends in a vowel, and for a masculine name, that makes it, well, it makes it slippery in Greek grammar.
Slippery? What do you mean?
It's indeclinable. You can't easily attach the different case endings we were just talking about. If you just leave it as Moshe, you can't really signal if he's the subject or the object. The grammar just, it jams. It's a square peg in a round hole.
So the Greek language machine kind of ground to a halt when it encountered Moshe.
That's a perfect way to put it. So the translators, they did what they often did with foreign names. They Hellenized it, they adapted it, they took Moshe, and they added that handle we talked about. They added the sigma.
And Moshe becomes Moises.
M-O-Y-S-E-S. By adding that S, the name suddenly works. You can decline it. You can say Moises did this, or I saw Moisen. It slots right into their system.
It's like giving him a linguistic passport. Okay, you want to exist in our sentences, you need to wear this badge.
And that badge stuck. The Greek Moises was the version that got copied and spread throughout the world. It went into Latin as Moises, and then eventually, much later, into English as the Moses we all know.
That's incredible. So the S at the end of his name is really a scar from the translation process. It's proof that his story had to pass through a Greek checkpoint to get to us.
Maybe not a scar, maybe more like
Yeah.
a stamp in the passport, a stamp of transit.
Okay, I like that. So we have Zeus, a Greek native. We have Moses, a Hebrew traveler who had to adapt.
Yeah.
Now we have to talk about the biggest one of all, Jesus.
The story of the name Jesus it's even more complex. But it really shows how this process works.
Because, again, just to be clear, he wasn't walking around Galilee being called Jesus.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
If you'd shouted Jesus in Nazareth around 30 AD, no one would have turned their head. He was a Jewish man who spoke Aramaic and Hebrew. His name was Yeshua.
Yeshua, which is basically the same name as Joshua from the Old Testament, right?
It is, yes. It was a very common name, means salvation. But now, the linguistic gymnastics have to start all over again. Because the New Testament, the Gospels, Paul's letters, they were written in Greek. They were meant for a Greek-speaking audience across the Roman Empire.
So the Gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they ran into the exact same problem as the translators of the Hebrew Bible did with Moses.
They ran into that problem, and an even bigger one first, a phonetic one.
Which was?
The shu sound.
Sh, as in shoe.
Yes. Hebrew has the letter shin, which makes that sound. Yeshua. The problem is ancient Greek doesn't have that sound. It just doesn't exist in their language. They have no letter for it.
Wait, hold on. The language of philosophy and democracy, they couldn't say sh.
Every language has its limits. It's like how some native Japanese speakers struggle with the L and R in English. The Greeks just didn't have sh. So imagine you're a scribe. You have to write down Yeshua. What do?
I guess you find the closest sound you can make.
Exactly. And the closest sound they had was a simple S, a sigma. So the shu becomes S. Yeshua loses its H sound and becomes something like Yeshua.
Okay, Yeshua, we're getting closer.
We are. But now we hit problem number 2. The ending, Yeshua, ends in A. And to a Greek ear, a name ending in A almost always sounds feminine.
Like Hera, Athena.
Precisely. So if you leave it as Yeshua, It not only sounds like a woman's name, but it's very difficult to decline as a masculine noun. It won't fit the grammar.
They need the handle, the suitcase handle.
They need that sigma again. So Yeshua gets an S tacked onto the end. Now you have Isus.
Isus. That's the name you see in the old Greek texts.
Correct. I-E-S-O-U-S. So look at the transformation. The shoe sound is gone because they couldn't say it. The final A is changed, and an S is added to make it a proper masculine subject.
That is a huge change. The name has been completely reshaped.
And the journey wasn't even over. The Romans adopted the Greek Isus, and in Latin it became Iosis. And then centuries and centuries later, in languages like English, that initial I or Y sound hardened into a J.
And ESS finally becomes Jesus.
And that's how we get from Yeshua to Jesus. But the critical piece for our puzzle today is that final S. It's the survivor. It made the jump from Greek to Latin and all the way to English.
It's incredible when you lay it out like that. We think of these names as these monolithic, eternal things. But the name Jesus is like a map of its own journey. It's missing a shish from a Greek limitation. It has an S from Greek grammar. It has a J from English pronunciation history.
Exactly. The name itself tells the story. And to bring it all the way back to your first question, the reason Zeus and Jesus both end with an S isn't theological. It's because both of their names had to exist and function within the ecosystem of the Greek language.
One was a native species, the other was an introduced species that had to adapt to survive in that ecosystem.
That is a perfect analogy. Absolutely perfect.
This reminds me of a phrase from the article we're looking at that I really loved. It called this a linguistic echo.
Yes. It's a beautiful way to think about it. It kind of breaks down the neat little boxes we put history into. You know, we have box A, Greek myths, box B, the Bible, and we think they're sealed off.
But language leaks between the boxes.
Language is the river that flows through all of them. The source material describes Greek as a bridge language, a conduit.
I like that, a conduit. It's like you have water from two totally different springs. One is from a mountain, that's the Greek myths. The other is from a desert, well, that's the Hebrew scriptures. But they both get pumped through the same pipe to get to us.
And that pipe is the Greek language.
And because that pipe has a certain shape.
The water comes out molded by the shape of the pipe, and in this case, the shape was the nominative sigma. Those grammatical rules from 2,000 years ago acted like a mold. And it didn't matter if you were a mythical hero like Achilles or a prophet like Moses. If your name went through the Greek pipe, it came out with an S.
It just highlights how much of what we think of as sacred tradition is actually, well, it's logistics, translation logistics.
It is, and there's something humbling in that. We think we're accessing these ancient stories in their purest form, but we aren't. We're accessing them through layers and layers of human problem solving.
It connects us to those people, though. I'm just picturing some scribe scratching his head thinking, how on earth do I write Yeshua so that my readers in Corinth can understand it?
They were just problem solvers. And their solution, that little S, is still on our lips today. Every time you say the name Moses or Jesus, you are, without even knowing it, obeying a grammatical rule from a civilization that's been dead for centuries. You're speaking a tiny piece of ancient Greek.
That's the part that really sticks with me. We are all just walking around carrying these linguistic echoes, and we have no idea.
It forces you to see language differently. It's not just a tool, it's an archive. Every word has a biography. You know, every word has scars and stamps for the places it's been.
So if we're trying to wrap this all up, what's the main takeaway for you? Beyond just a neat fact about the letter S.
I think the takeaway is to be curious about the why behind things. When you notice a pattern, like the Zeus Jesus ending, don't just settle for the most mystical or mysterious answer.
Right, don't immediately assume it's a conspiracy or hidden code.
Exactly. Look for the mechanics. Look for the human element.
Yeah.
The shared S isn't a divine secret. It's a collision. A fascinating collision between Semitic names and Greek grammar rules.
And that one collision literally shaped the sound of names that half the world considers sacred today.
It really did. It reminds you that culture is never pure. It's always a mix. It's a negotiation. And even the most important names in our history are a product of that negotiation.
Well, I can safely say I will never hear a name ending in S the same way again. I'm going to be mentally checking its case endings.
Just try not to start calling your friends Poms when they're the subject of the sentence. It might get weird.
No promises. But before we sign off, I just want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We spent this whole deep dive talking about one single letter, an S, a sound that traveled through empires and languages for thousands of years.
It's a very heavy letter when you think about it.
It is. So here's the thought for you to chew on. What other linguistic echoes are hiding in the words you use every day? What other ancient histories are you speaking without even realizing it?
Now that is a rabbit hole worth exploring.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.